All right, Sidney, we are recording, so take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Jackie, for having me. I'm super excited. Happy Tuesday to everybody there. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. And first and foremost, I hope everyone is staying safe. I tell you about pivoting. I'm speaking to you from Canada. I came up for a book signing, believe it or not. And didn't expect to be here for a few months, but I'm here now. So talk about pivoting. Actually, the book signing got canceled, and I decided to stay here for a bit to work on some projects. And I tell you, I had to pivot myself. I'm a brand expert, but think about the time that we just went through, and the time we just went through, are going through, by the way. So went through and going through. It's been difficult for us all. So I had to think about how I personally pivoted. How would I pivot? And I had to pivot my business. I lost a lot of my business, and I moved to think about ways to really try to help people grow their business and how to pivot now. And I always say pivoting comes with a purpose. You have to have a purpose and a plan in order to pivot effectively. So let's talk about what pivoting really means. What does it mean, and why do you need to pivot? Well, it's vitally important that you think about this. There's an old saying, the only constant is change, right? The only constant is change. So think about that. I have so many clients, and the first thing I do with all of my clients is I do a back to basics strategy, right? Back to basics. So the first thing you can do before you pivot, you have to know where you were pivoting from, okay? You have to know where you were pivoting from. So how do you do that? You have to really dig deep and think about what was the vision of the company, right? The vision is that big picture. What initially is your vision? Where's your company headed? What's the future of your company, right? And this is the time now to really think about what is the true vision of your company, right? Also, the mission, right? So mission is how are you going to get there? What strategies and tactics are you going to utilize to get there, right? So what's the mission of your company? You think you may know the mission, but think about it again. I would challenge everyone to really think about where their company is headed. Because again, when it comes to pivoting, we've all had to pivot during the last couple of months. So is your vision the same? Is your mission the same? Are you utilizing the same strategies and tactics? So think about that as well. Now, nothing happens without values, and I'm really big on this. Think about what your core values are for your company, right? Vitally important to think about values. Why? Because when there's ebbs and flows, you always go back to your corporate values. Think about why you existed, right? Respect for people, community, whatever your values might be for your respective company, vitally important that you think about that and you evaluate that now. So one of the things that I hold near and dear to my heart and how I had to pivot was thinking about what makes great leaders. And I can tell you, there is no time that I could think of where you're going to need this next skill. Harvard Business Review did an amazing article on what makes great leaders, and great leaders are made by a high level of emotional intelligence. So I hold this really near and dear to my heart because many years ago, I was a corporate trainer for a Fortune 50 company, and we taught a lot of EIQ, right? So the short word, emotional intelligence, or EIQ is how they refer to it. And back then it was considered a soft skill, right? A soft skill, meaning it wasn't a skill that you really needed. So EIQ now is a skill that every leader is going to need to have. This is what I consider the X factor. So you really have to think about, as a leader, why are you there? How are you leading your people? And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because so oftentimes we talk about, we speak about revenue, we speak about our customer, but it really is about your team. You don't exist without two things, a team and your customers. So how are you communicating? Are you communicating in an open and honest way? Think about that. Are you communicating in an open and honest way? Because I can tell you, consumers are super savvy now, even more so, and you have to communicate in an open and honest way. Two, you really have to be mindful about how your business is perceived. And we're going to speak about that a little bit later. We can speak about social media, how customers are looking at your business, vitally important. Also, you have to listen and learn from your customer. Really listen to what your customer is saying. Your customer will tell you what he or she wants, what they need from your business if you listen. And oftentimes we listen without applying the lessons that we learned from our customer or consumer. So EIQ is something I challenge you. I challenge you to think about how you can be a more emotionally intelligent leader. It is vitally important to think about that, not only for your internal team, but also for your external customer. Now, there's a couple of components to EIQ that I think are really important to bring up. The first one is self-awareness. How self-aware are you as a leader? So what that means is, how able are you to look at what you might have said, look at how you might have done something, and think about how you can shift. What can you do differently? Great leaders always are asking questions about what they can do differently. The second component is self-regulation. So this is not the time to react to everything. And in fact, great leaders often understand that, there's a lot of noise out there, especially now. But so how can you self-regulate? Self-regulate your mood, because that is going to help show a consistency with your consumer. So vitally important. And three, what motivates you? Think about that. What motivates your team members, right? What motivates your team? Because everyone has a different motivation. See, I'm not motivated by money, right? I'm motivated by value. I'm motivated by adding value to people, sharing experiences to help people win. 4, empathy. This is just so vitally important for anyone, especially a leader. How empathetic are you? Are you truly listening to what people are saying? And I can tell you, when people come back to work, this is going to be a skill that is going to be invaluable for you to be empathetic, because everyone knows someone who was affected, and everybody processes information differently. So how empathetic are you? Okay, think about that. And then 5, social skills. So, back in the day, a lot of leaders didn't think they needed to have social skills, but without having social skills today, it is really going to truly affect your business internally and externally. So think about social skills as well. Okay, 5 components of EIQ. Now, authenticity matters. So, I trained, hundreds of reps on a program called DISC. So EIQ is important. So how do you train EIQ? One of the models for training EIQ is called DISC. It's a personality assessment model. It's almost like a new and improved Myers-Briggs. And what that model does, it disallows you to place value-based assumptions on your team, okay? So think about this way. So there's just 4 categories of people, right? There's dominant, okay, which are people-oriented. There's I, which is intellect, okay? And then there's S, which is steady and stable, which is service-oriented. And then there's C, cautious and conscientious, which is process-oriented. So dominant, again, results-oriented. I, intellect, people-oriented. S, steady and stable, service-oriented. C, cautious and conscientious, which is process-oriented. So think of it like this. If I came in a room and it was too warm in here, and I went right over to the temperature gauge, right? Dominant, that's results-oriented. I want results right now. If I came in a room and I was an I, which is intellect, which is people-oriented, I would say, Jackie, you're cold? Aaron, are you cold? I would seek support, right? People-oriented. If I was an S, which is steady and stable, which is service-oriented, I would come in and say, I am so glad I brought my sweater today because it's so cold in here. And if I was a C, which is cautious and conscientious, which is process-oriented, that's the way people think, process-oriented, I would come in the room and say, I wonder if the heating system is broke. I wonder if the engineer's on vacation. And I can tell you that DISC has been one of the most valuable tools that I've ever learned in my entire life. I actually was lucky enough to learn DISC from the gentleman who created it. And it has really changed my life. Why? Because it allows you to vacillate in and out of who you are to deal more effectively with people. Again, it allows you to vacillate in and out of who you are to deal more effectively with people. So think about DISC as a tool that can help you in your business as well. 2, value add. So one of the things that is vitally important now for businesses, I always thought this was important. I wrote an article many, many years ago for Branding Mag, and I actually stated If a business doesn't have a philanthropic arm, if they don't focus on value add, they're going to have to focus on it. And you see a lot of businesses now connecting to community organizations, giving back, and really sort of having sustainability around it. It's no longer just a social media PR play. You really have to sink your teeth into something philanthropic, because again, the consumer's watching and authenticity matters. Think about how you can add value to your business and also to your employees, because this is a team effort, right? And so if you think about your team, this is the talent development piece, and then the value add and the philanthropic piece is your external piece, right? That's how you can show customers that you really are committed to a community, that you really do want to help the community grow and help your business grow. So think about also 3 words. So I started with dream, create, win, right? So now, I think of things in 3s. Think about 3 words that describe you and your business, right? So purpose, plan, pivot is what I had to do, right? Think about 3 words that describes your business and where you are now. It is one of the most effective exercises, is to think about 3 words that describes your business. And I can tell you one thing. So it's funny because I talk to a lot of companies, major companies. I speak to a lot of CEOs. And the first question I ask is, what do you sell? Louis Vuitton is not selling handbags. Now, of course they are, but they're not. Gucci's not selling handbags. They're selling aspiration. They're selling a lifestyle. They're selling a feeling. So what are you truly selling? What are you truly selling? And think about why the client hired you. Why the client or customer hires you. Hire you. Why do they purchase from you? Because without thinking about that, then you're really not thinking about your sustainability, because guess what? There's always competition. And now you see that there are a lot of businesses consolidating. And so you have to really think about what makes the customer come to this business. What makes the customer come back to this business? You really, really have to think about that. Sit down, ask yourself and your team that question. Another exercise that I like to utilize is put everybody in a room. Let everybody write down their own answer. Put it up on a sticky board, right? Put it up on a cork board and look at the different answers from your team. I guarantee you that a lot of people in your team will see your business different than you may see it. And also customers may see it differently. So think about potentially doing a focus group as well on how you should pivot for your customer where you're located, okay? How you should pivot based on where you're located. Because again, the customer is very savvy and they will let you know. Now, social media is vitally important, and it's one of the things that people get wrong, right? They get wrong so much, so often. And I don't mean that from a judgmental way. I mean it from the sense that this is the time for you to really, really, really think about your messaging. Think about your messaging. Look at your website. I just actually did a website for a client, and we changed the whole entire messaging of the website. This may be the time to do that, because that website is your front-facing billboard, so to speak, to the consumer. Does it need to shift? What things need to shift around your website? Messaging matters, and so oftentimes people keep messaging in a stagnant space. And what I would argue is savvy brands are proactive, not reactive. So I'll say it again. Savvy brands are proactive, not reactive. So how can you be proactive around your messaging? And think about tone, because there's no time ever, again, this is unprecedented, where tone is vitally important. You have to think about how you are speaking to the consumer. Acknowledgement matters. Acknowledge what's happened, Think about your tone. Think about your messaging. Does a campaign need to change? Maybe you need to do a new campaign with different tone, different messaging. So think about messaging as well. Jackie, any questions so far? Jackie?
Okay, hi, I am here.
Okay.
Hi, no questions, but you will let me know when to start the presentation, right?
Okay. Okay. No, I already started. Oh, you didn't. Oh, I had it up
Remember,
on my screen.
no, remember, I have to start it.
Okay, you can start it. Start it now. So I'll just go
Okay,
back through it. Yeah.
sorry about that.
No
So,
problem.
yeah, I've got to get it back up. Sorry. Yeah, so,
We'll do another quick run through.
okay, I've got to download it and then, yeah, so apologies.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess it was kind of hard for you guys to follow along.
Yeah. I thought it was up on the screen. I did.
Yeah, give me just a second to get back. And come on. Okay.
There we go.
Okay. All right. So where would you like me to scroll down to?
We'll go to pivoting because I'll just start there. We can just start. I'm just go back through it again.
Right here?
Yeah, right there, right
Okay,
there. So,
great.
so you guys will hear a double presentation. How about that?
Yeah, just you have to tell me when to scroll.
I'll let you know when to scroll.
All right.
So again, let's start back and start the slides weren't on the screen, but that's okay. You know, pivoting, right? This is what pivoting looks like in technology. So again, one of the most important things you can do to pivot is to understand where you're pivoting from. You have to understand where you're pivoting from. You can't pivot without understanding where you're pivoting from. So how do you do that is what I was stating earlier. How do you do that? You do that from analyzing your vision, which is the big picture, right? Vision. Why does your company exist and where is it going? So you got to think about what is your vision? Does it need to change? Okay. Mission are the strategies and tactics to get there, right? So think about your mission statement. And I tell you, it feels like a super granular exercise, but again, like I said earlier, it is one of the hardest exercises for companies to do. So really think about your vision, mission, and values. And when I stated earlier around values, when the ebbs and flows of business happen, again, the only constant is change. Your values are what's going to root you and root your business and allow you to have sustainability. So again, this is an exercise that feels super granular, but again, I can't tell you how many businesses that I speak with where you ask them, what's your vision? What's your mission? And by the way, think about your own personal mission statement, personal mission statement. My mission is to add value through sharing of experiences to help people grow. What's your personal mission statement? I'm a firm believer that having a personal mission statement helps your business as well, especially if you are a CEO or a C-suite leader. Okay, you can go to the next slide. So we spoke about emotional intelligence, and I'm actually glad this happened this way because this way I can give you some further context. So emotional intelligence, there was an article done in Harvard Business Review, a landmark article. Goldman, I can't remember the other gentleman's name, but Dr. Goldman, Daniel Goldman wrote an article, and this is many years ago, back in the 90s, and essentially stated that, what makes a great leader? What do great leaders have in common? And, I spoke about when I worked in corporate, EIQ, or emotional intelligence, was considered a soft skill. Meaning it was considered a skill that wasn't valued too highly, right? A soft skill. And I can tell you now that emotional intelligence is the X factor. It will be the defining skill set for leaders today. I'm going to state it again. Emotional intelligence, a high level of emotional intelligence, will be the defining factor for leaders today and moving forward, in my opinion. And what does that mean? What does that look like? It means communicating in an open and honest way, right? So you have to think about the fact that consumers are savvy. Your team members are savvy, right? So one of the hallmarks of emotional intelligence is always communicating in an open, honest way, being super authentic, super transparent. And you'll see that has a direct correlation to your bottom line, because consumers, team members, they love authenticity. Authenticity matters. Second, be mindful how your business is perceived. How is your business perceived? And how do you do that? How do you figure out how your business is perceived? Well, you can do a 360 assessment, right? We spoke about it earlier. You can actually ask your team members, okay, what they think of the business, what they think of you, right? And vice versa, obviously confidentially. And then you can take focus group and ask your consumers in your area, how is the business perceived? What would you do differently if you ran this business? When you give consumers a voice, they respond. And then what you have to do is listen, learn, and apply what you heard. So too oftentimes, people listen, data matters. And so there's so much data that you can gather just by asking people questions. But you have to listen, you have to learn, and then you have to apply. You have to apply that information to help your business grow. Okay, next slide. So EIQ, again, one of the hallmarks of, in my opinion, of great leaders. And so what are the components of EIQ? Okay. First and foremost is self-awareness, having a true awareness of your leadership style, how you're leading your team, how you're interacting with your consumer, right? So having self-awareness is a vital component of EIQ. Second is self-regulation. You have to have the ability to monitor your mood and not react to everything that you hear necessarily around your business, right? So there's so much noise on social media, so much noise, and there's a lot of data points around companies who don't react to listen but not react to negative comments from their business. So having self-regulation is vitally important, especially for a high level EIQ. Three, what motivates you? What's motivating you? And what I said earlier is, I'm not motivated by money. And I found it vitally important to figure out what motivates your team members, right? Think about, everyone has different motivation. So think about how you can speak to each team member to help them based on their motivation, right? So again, I'm not motivated by money. I'm motivated by recognition. I'm motivated by helping others. So think about how you can motivate your team members because you will definitely see improved growth and revenue from that. Four, we spoke about it earlier as well, empathy. So how empathetic are you? And empathy right now is going to be a vital, it always has been a vital skill set, but it is absolutely vital now because, like I said earlier, there's a lot of people affected by this pandemic. And how can you show empathy? And how can you show empathy? What can you do to actively show empathy? And one of the largest components of empathy is actively listening. And so what is actively listening? That's listening without preparing your response, right? So actively listening to what your team members are saying, what your customers are saying, and being empathetic around that. And five, social skills. So, having the ability to interact well with others across the board, right? Across the board, different personality types. Okay, next slide. And so how do you do that? DISC is, again, a personality assessment model that I taught, hundreds and hundreds of reps how to utilize DISC. And what is DISC? It's, think of it as a tool to help your team interact more effectively. And what is DISC? It's 4 categories of DISC. And I was lucky enough to learn it, again, from the guys who created it. There's 4 different categories of people. Dominant, which are results-oriented. I, which stands for intellect, which is people-oriented. S, which is steady and stable. They're service-oriented. C, cautious and conscientious, which is process-oriented. So again, I'll give you the same example. Think about it like this. If I come in a room and it's too cold, I go right over, I'm a D, dominant, I go right over to the controller to turn it up. Results, I want results. If I come in the room and I'm the I, which is intellect, people-oriented, I was like, Jackie, are you cold? Aaron, are you cold? I seek support. If I came in and I was an S, which is steady and stable, which is service-oriented, I come in and I go, I am so glad that, I'm able to take off my coat. I'm so glad that I have my sweater. whatever it might be, right? Because I'm service-oriented, I'm in my cocoon, I don't want to bother anyone else, right? And if I was a C, which is cautious and conscientious, I would be process-oriented, right? So process-oriented means I would come in the room and I would say, I wonder if the engineer is on vacation. I wonder if the air conditioner is broke. And I can tell you that this is one of the most powerful skills that I've ever learned. And the reason that is because when you have the ability to vacillate in and out of who you are, it just gives you an immense amount of power. Knowing yourself is the true power that you can have. And when you do that, and when you're able to speak to someone the way they hear it, that's how you build teams. That's how you build relationships. And so DISC is a great tool to do that. Value add, long gone are the days where businesses can just do business without thinking about how can I add value? Really think about how can you add value to the community? And what better time to think about how you can add value than during COVID, right? During the George Floyd's, there's no better time in history where you can think of ways to partner with your community, right? Partner with your community. Think about how you can add value, not just sell products or services, add value. When you add value, customers and consumers come. Key component of pivoting, value. 3, again, I wrote an article many moons ago around if businesses do not connect to a philanthropic arm, I would argue that a lot will not exist moving forward. You think about what can you do to build philanthropy into your business model. Build it into your model. Make it a part of your metrics. Make it a part of your business metric to have something philanthropic attached to your business. Consumers see that, right? And that authenticity really plays out very well with consumers. And don't just make it a PR stunt. Make it something that's really sustainable and something that's a metric that you build into your business. Next slide. And any questions, Jackie? I'm happy to take them now if there's any questions. You want to? Okay. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, so next. Purpose, plan, and pivot, right? Purpose, plan, and pivot. Pivoting requires you to have a purpose. Again, you can't pivot if you don't know where you're pivoting from. You got to have a plan. What's your plan? Okay. Remember why consumers come to your business. Like I stated earlier, Louis Vuitton is not selling handbags. They're selling a lifestyle. They're selling lifestyle. They're selling aspiration. So what are you actually selling? I mean, think about that as an exercise to do. What are you actually selling? You think about it from your end and also think about it from the consumer's end. Ask consumers, what do you think we're selling? If we could shift or we could do something differently, what would you do differently? Ask your customer. Your customer will tell you exactly where you should pivot and how you should pivot. Take that data and utilize it, okay? Take that data and utilize it. And also think about ways that you can, and services, extra services you can offer to customers that are not always, attached to you making money. What services can you offer to consumers where you can help them? Again, value add, pivoting, right? Because what you're doing is you're building up customer loyalty, and you're also building sustainable customers that want to come back over and over again. When I go to a business, when I go to a restaurant, I go back to the same restaurants or businesses based on a few things, based on the fact that I'm getting great customer service, the fact that I feel listened to, and the fact that it feels like there's some community when I go there. So customers, again, are very savvy, and again, savvy brands are proactive, not reactive. Again, savvy brands are proactive, not reactive. Next slide. So social media, this is, vitally important. And I hope you guys, there's a lot to unpack in 1 hour, but I hope you guys are getting value from this. So social media is vitally important. It's important because this is your front-facing billboard to the consumer. You know, so many businesses, in my opinion, get social media wrong. Why? Because they look at it as a one-off. They look at it as a short-term strategy. Social media really is about telling a story to your consumer and keeping that story going. Think of it like a thread through a shoe. So the most effective social media campaigns, think about, you know, Coke is it. You know, you got the right one, baby. You know, you have it your way. Like you're telling the story through a series of messaging, right? You're telling the story through a series of messaging. So I would urge that everyone go back and look at their website. I had to go back and look at my own personal website to see what things need to shift around my personal website. Keep things moving. Don't make them static, because I can tell you the only constant is change. So a lot of websites are static. Do you have Parallax as a website, which is probably the most effective website, which is the scrolling website? You know, do you have videos on your website? You know, do you want to start making videos on your website? Video is one of the most effective ways to tell stories about your company, to help your company connect with consumers. You know, maybe start a video campaign, and always think about the fact that tone matters. Tone is so vitally important, and if you're questioning whether tone matters or not, I can give you a multitude of examples how tone has adversely affected businesses, and I'm sure you guys can think of a ton of examples, especially as of late, where tone matters. So think about not only what your messaging is, but what is the tone of that messaging. Okay, next slide. And, you know, what I'll say in closing before I take some questions is, you know, you have to be willing to embrace change. You know, again, the only constant is change. And so I just want to challenge everybody today to think not only internally, but externally around how your business can pivot. And I gave a lot to unpack in an hour. But again, vision, mission, values. Go back to the basics. Go back to the basics, why you exist. What are you really selling? You know, and there's a great article called The Coherence Premium, which states that businesses can only do 3 things really well. So what are those 3 things that your business does well? How can you improve on those 3 things that you do so well? How can you improve? Coherence Premium is a great article to speak about that. And then internally, we spoke about emotional intelligence. You know, how can you get your team to interact more effectively? How can you interact more effectively with your team? And one of the tools for doing so is the utilization of DISC, which is one of the best models, and a lot of Fortune 100 companies utilize DISC because it helps you interact more effectively, but it also allows you to really truly hear the way the other person is hearing what you're stating, right? So I'm an I, so I'm people oriented. So we spoke about the 4 different categories. So for me, I like praise, right? But if I was speaking to a D, remember, which is results oriented, I go right in and tell them, listen, I need this document, I need that, we need this done, right? But if I came in and I was an S, or I was speaking to an S, right, service oriented, I want to be mindful. I want to be mindful that that person hears things differently than I hear and receive them. So again, DISC is a very powerful tool for you to vacillate in and out of who you are to lead more effectively, right? So again, emotional intelligence, DISC, value add is the last thing that I'll say. Think about ways to add value to your community. There's no better time and no better way to pivot than to think about what philanthropic cause can you attach your business to? How can you offer extra services or value to your consumer? What does that look like? I'll give you an example. So I saw today on NBC News, there was a restaurant owner, and obviously restaurants are closing, and he lost a lot of his business. So he actually repurposed and pivoted his restaurant to number one, a soup kitchen, which was amazing. And he hired underprivileged teens to come work there. Why? Because, obviously A lot of teens are out of work now. You know, they don't have jobs. So he repurposed his restaurant for that. Well, guess what? The community came out in droves to embrace him. They're coming out in droves to embrace him. That was NBC News this morning. They're coming out in droves to embrace him. Why? Because he pivoted with a purpose. So remember, when you pivot with a purpose and understand what that purpose is. And again, go back to the basics. Last thing I'll say, go back to the basics. Vision, mission, values. Feels granular, but I'm telling you, it'll save you a lot of time. And I'm sure you will pivot effectively with purpose. So thank you so much. Jackie, you there?
Okay. All right. Yes. Yeah. It takes a second. So.
Okay.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Let me I guess show myself here. Let me take it off of.
And you have like 2 presentations. We can just edit.
Yeah. I want to try to show. There I am. Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank you so much, Sidney, for sharing some words of wisdom for us. So, and feel free again, if you guys have any questions, you can put them in the chat. But one of the things I wanted to ask you to, if you could address and elaborate, a lot of our MBEs have corporate customers, right? They don't sell directly to consumers or retail, right? A lot of them are in the corporate space. So that's a little bit different from selling to consumers. So how would you suggest they think about, so if they think about their purpose, right, how can they pivot and add value to their corporate partners today when even some of the categories aren't even, being bought anymore, right? So a lot of the corporate side are saying, hey, you know what, I got to put this on hold, or we're not doing this right now. So how can those that work with and sell to the corporate space, what should they be thinking about right now?
Right, and I that's a great point. And so, I think they should definitely think about what they're selling, right? So they have to really just go back to what they're selling. So again, if that corporation is discontinued an item or something, think about another value add you can offer for that corporation, right? There's always value you can offer to a corporation, right? So if you have a corporate partner, think about other ways that you can offer value outside of that particular product group. Is that fair?
Yeah, and I'm sure some of our MBEs would probably have want to go a little deeper than that. Because oftentimes people they open their businesses because they have an expertise in an area, or they saw a need, or they did it for a living, oftentimes many years, and then they go off to start their businesses. So we have a lot of mature businesses that are MBEs. So I'm sure they're trying to figure it all out right now. Okay, what do we think about today, given COVID-19, given the state of what's going on? I will say to everybody though, if you are African American, there are a lot of corporations that are reaching out to councils, and they're looking for, we've had several new members join recently because they are actively looking for and trying to make a difference, especially with Black owners. So we tell them we are definitely the minority council, but we can find you, any kind of business. So Sidney, yeah,
what I would also add to that, just to kind of go a little deeper. What I would do is hey Barbara, how are you? I see Barbara on the screen. How are you? I'm good. To go just a little deeper with that, Jackie, what I would do is I would actively reach out to those organizations, right? So actively reach out. So position yourself in a way where you actively reach out and actively write a letter, write down your value, and actively reach out to to your point. So like I saw, I don't know if it was this morning, $100 million or something that I can't remember the name of it right offhand, but $100 million they're going to repurpose to black-owned businesses. Maybe I can't remember Skype or one of these companies.
Netflix.
I'm sorry.
Netflix.
I can't hear you.
Go ahead, Barbara.
Oh, Barbara.
I said it was Netflix.
Yes.
Oh, Netflix. I'm sorry, Netflix. Yeah, I'm sorry, Netflix. Yeah, exactly. So Netflix. Right. So, right. I couldn't. So just actively reach out, and show your value to diversity councils and other organizations. Like, actively reach out. Don't just wait for you to have to change. Actively be proactive around that change.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Are there any other questions or anything that he can elaborate on, or any, if you have a specific instance, I can, let me unmute all. So if anybody has anything they'd like to say, the lines are now open, so feel free.
And I see Barbara there.
Well, hi, this is Barbara from
Hey, Barbara.
Hi, Sidney. And
How are you?
His
Oh
book
my
is
God, thank you.
amazing.
Thank you.
Buy the book. It's good for small businesses.
Oh, thank
great.
you. I appreciate that, Barbara. Thank you.
Great. That's great. That's great.
Hey, you just call?
Oh, hey, Chris. Go
Hey.
ahead.
Hey, Kristen. Hey, Kristen.
Oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh, well, sorry about that. Thank you for providing the information to us.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Hopefully it was helpful.
Yes, yes.
Hey, Sidney, a question just popped up in the chat
Okay.
box. How do you pivot your organization if you are not necessarily in the leadership role? So some of the people on the call may not be the CEOs of their organizations. So how do they help their organizations or their companies pivot?
That's actually a great question. And so if you're not the CEO, you know what I say? Everybody has the opportunity to lead if you think about it, right? So that would be my answer would be everyone has the opportunity to lead. Everybody can be the Oprah of their department or the LeBron of their department, right? So everybody has an opportunity to lead. What I would state is step up and think about gaps that the business has. And help identify solutions. So one of the best things you can do if you're not in a leadership role to actually get to a leadership role, if you so desire, is to figure out a gap and figure out a solution. So I never forget, again, when I was working in corporate, I had a really great mentor that said, Sidney, we hired you for solutions, not to identify problems. So again, think about a problem, but also think about a solution. Stay solutions driven. That is one of the, and that answer actually goes for the corporations as well. Stay solutions driven and stay proactive around how you can add value, what gaps are in your business, and how do you have a solution for that gap?
Great. Thank you. Anything else? Any other questions or anything he can elaborate on? We've got just a few minutes left.
I see somebody, Chess.
Let's see, what do you say?
I saw chest pop up. And the thing I want to also say, Jackie, like DISC is really, I want you guys to really look into DISC because it is really a powerful way to really develop yourself as a leader. So if you don't know about DISC, really look at that. I brought that up for a reason because, to your point around that question, for a person that wants to grow, listening is the most effective way to grow. And DISC will help you not only listen to yourself, but listen to others. And again, vacillate in and out of who you are to interact more effectively. And trust me when I tell you, you can be a leader by knowing yourself better. That's true power.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, amen. Yes, that is a true statement. We have utilized DISC and I've used it a few times in my career. It is a powerful tool. So. Yeah.
And it's something you can utilize all the time. And the other thing I'll say is, especially like, for a lot of these other businesses, don't be scared to do a 360 assessment. When you ask the question about corporations to dig deeper, do not go to that corporation, figure out how that corporation sees you. What can you do differently? What other value or services are they looking for? What gaps can you fill for that corporation? So think out of the box as well. I see Karen popped up on the screen. Hey, Karen. Hey, Karen.
Is she trying to figure out how to? Everybody's unmuted.
Hello.
There you are.
Hey, Karen.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Thank you so much for the presentation. Very good.
No problem. No
Yeah,
problem. Thank you for having me.
I'm familiar with DISC as well. We used it when I was in banking, and it really does make a huge impact. I was a firm Myers-Briggs user, but I really like DISC as well.
Yeah.
There was another question. Oh, go ahead, Sidney.
No, I was going to say that it's a great point, Karen, because the whole reason that DISC came into such popularity is because it disallows you to place value-based assumptions on people, right? So you're describing a set of categories of behaviors. And when I taught DISC, the one thing that we always stated, and I want to make this really clear, because what happens a lot of times is people say, "Oh my God, I'm a D, so I'm better than you." Because there is no one best disposition. There is no one best disposition. Okay, there's not, CEOs aren't all eyes, or CEOs aren't all. There is no one best disposition. So it's a tool for you to know yourself and be able to vacillate in and out of yourself. So yeah, another question. Thanks, Karen, for the question.
Yeah, can your DISC outcome change? So, and should you do it again and recalibrate every once in a while? And if so, how often?
Well, that I don't have the answer to, but I can tell you this: you have a big letter and a small letter. So I'm a big I, little d. That small letter is the stress letter, right? So it actually doesn't change, believe it or not. It actually stays pretty much the same because DISC goes on the spectrum. So it might change slightly, but it's not going to change. You're not going to go from an I to a C. If you answer the questions correctly, you're not going to just completely change.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Jackie, maybe some people, I don't know, but I've never seen anybody change, and I've taught this to.
Yeah. I haven't either in all the years, so that would be a miracle. So we have time for one more question.
And thank you all so much for having. I'll take the other question, but thank you guys so much for logging on and taking your time. Like I said, I am so committed to just offering value. If you follow me on LinkedIn, I just try to post positive stuff to really help your business grow. Barbara knows me very well, and trust me, if I can help you, I will. And it's not a sales pitch. If I can help you, I will. I'm really super authentic around wanting to help you grow. That's it. That's all I do this for. I don't do it for money. I like money, but I don't do it for money. I really do it to help you grow.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Sidney. We appreciate your time, and eventually we hope to get you back down to the States, I guess, one day.
One of these days, right? Thank you, Lori. I saw that. Thank you so much, Jackie, for having me. I really appreciate it. Hopefully it was valuable for you and your members. I really hope so.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for attending. Love to hear any feedback you have, okay? Take care, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Take care. Bye-bye. Bye, Barbara. Take care. Bye-bye, guys. Thank you.